Welcome to the video. I just kind of had like some realizations like right before I hit play about tapping into the Scorpio energy. I feel like there's stuff happening around the videos that relates to each sign. And I'll even get messages from people of that sign, like in the midst of me recording a video for that sign, or just weird things like that. And I currently live on the bottom floor of an apartment, and just lately, me and my partner have been feeling really oppressed by our upstairs neighbors because you can just kind of hear them just going throughout, and it just feels like you're very, like, constricted. And I definitely have, it's a big trigger for me. I've never liked living on the bottom floor of places. I always like to live above. And that just felt very Scorpio, like being kind of pushed, being like maybe belittled or taken advantage of, is very water nature. And as well as that, I was thinking about the flowers in the background I had because I just finished a Libra reading, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to push myself and just do another reading back to back. And I'm like, that's very Scorpio, is just kind of pushing through it. And I was like, do you think that they would like the flowers or not? Do we think it's a little too, like lighthearted, or a little too like beautiful? What the Scorpio has like its own kind of perception of beauty and intensity. And I was like, I don't know. So I kind of got like this little bit of fear about like whether it was going to be off putting to you guys or not. And I think that speaks a lot to kind of how people approach Scorpios, is like they try to like kind of, they get a little scared. I feel like you guys kind of wear a little bit of intensity on you, and so it can make for people very hard to approach you, which is a good and a bad thing. I mean, maybe it's good if you're like in a tough business or something like that, and you're a CEO or something. You don't just want random people trying to pull one up on you all the time, but for just like a friend or something like that, I don't feel like it's as helpful. So um, I was just kind of wary of that, like right before I hit record, and then I also went to the kitchen to get some water, and I was like, okay, well, that was just a lot of coincidences, like right before I did this, and I just felt like pointing them out in case they resonate with you guys, because they did speak very Scorpio to me. So, um, without further ado, let me give these cards a really good shuffle. So we're stepping into the Scorpio frame of mind. We've moved through Libra, the second air sign, and we had some good insights in there. And whether you guys are attracted to Libras or not, I feel like I do see lots of Scorpio and Libra action. There's a famous example of, what are their characters' names? Rose and Jack from Titanic are Libra and Scorpio. We see Rose is kind of like in a position where she has to put on airs to maintain appearances, and she's from a very well-to-do family. There's a lot of expectations surrounding her, and she's like pretty unhappy with everything. And but she also does see deeper into things like that air insights, and she has a knack for art, and she loves that stuff, and maybe stuff that she doesn't fully understand but she is attracted to. And then we see with Scorpio, Leo is very much one. He comes in and he just kind of changes her world, and he like has to thrive in her lifestyle in order to impress her family and show her mom that like he's worthy. And not that he necessarily does that successfully, but it is cool to see his transformation, and from like these very like everyday clothes, somebody of like the working class, and then moving into like a tux, and just really like dressing it up. And so we see that transformation with you guys, that you're constantly put into situations, or you find yourself in situations where you have to really like shed your skin and kind of put on a new attire, a new presence, a new personality. If we look at Anne Hathaway and Devil Wears Prada, I mean, she totally transformed from a writer that thinks she kind of knows everything to being somebody that knows nothing of the fashion industry, and she transforms into somebody that can do it flawlessly, and no one would second guess where she works, or that she has any kind of doubt about her place in the industry and all that. And So you guys have this range to really kind of take on like a whole new approach or world almost. And I think you get a little bit of that from Libra before you. You get the mirror. You know, the mirror is really about being receptive to how other people perceive you and almost depending on other people to uh, give you advice or critique or praise you because Libras naturally attract that. They don't really have a solid voice for themselves. And so, in turn, that responds to other people almost giving them what they internally lack. And that's a very complex concept to kind of understand. I'm not going to go too deep into it because this video is about you guys, but with every zodiac sign, we see some of the traits from the sign before it move into it just and meld into a new way. And so with you guys, it's a really head to toe transformation into the world, the environment you're surrounding yourself in. Whereas a Libra may be able to kind of mirror anybody that they come into contact with. You take a full body approach to blending into that environment, but also doing enough to stand out and to getting into a position of power and success. So kudos to you guys. You have like a very strong willpower and capacity and just that intensity, which can be very overbearing to some people, you know, especially when you guys are like just really, really in a fear based frame of mind. That's when you're the hardest to deal with. That's when you're projecting this level of dominance and intensity that you may think it's coming across as confident, but I think most people can kind of see the fear behind it. And, you know, I guess they just end up kind of like submitting to you because it's just so, you know, it's like, what are my other options? You know, start a fight with a Scorpio, good luck. So let's see here. What do we get for you guys, Scorpio? We have the expected death card. You know, if we just think about the thing I was fearing with the flowers with you guys, you think about the death card and like all of your fear, you know, lights go ballistic. You know, they all light up. And so that's kind of like what it is like approaching you guys is, you know, almost feels like dangerous in some aspects. And it's just that fixed water nature. Not that it's unpredictable, but it's very unstable, you know, and I don't think it's as erratic as like an Aquarius would be, you know, but it can seem lethal to some people. It's just because you put your emotions and things that you're intensely feeling so far out in the open, and you also project your fears. Like, if you see something happening, maybe a Scorpio is a lot more likely to raise their voice and like call that person out when everybody else around them is just kind of like letting it happen. And so like there's good and bad to it. I feel like you guys really have like a lot of mixed morals. And okay, so you get that from Libra too, because we think of Libra and the association to the legal system and lawyers and how they can manipulate the hell out of a conversation, but they don't necessarily make the decisions. And so there's almost ruckus nature to both of those signs, and that it kind of creates some kind of chaos or something where you guys get to navigate through, but you're kind of putting everybody else up for, you know, being less empowered. You know, it's almost like destabilizing energy. And so you have a very interesting effect on your environment. I'll just say that. Wheel of Fortune in reverse. So, this is one of my favorite cards in the Zodiac, and probably the only card I would ever get a tattoo of if I do. But it's usually this way, and this is that there is a trusting nature into things that are innately happening around you. This is very Sagittarius in nature. It's kind of like knowing that things will somehow work out. It's having a really good optimistic perspective. And we got this in reverse. So what does that tell you guys? That you don't really trust the natural order of things in the world, and that you seek to impose your own viewpoints and your own vantage points on almost like destiny. Basically, you're trying to control destiny because this is like surrendering to it, knowing that, ultimately you can't control what happens day by day, but you can control your perspective. You can control your approach. You can um, think better about situations. And so it's getting outside of feeling powerless, but knowing that you can make things easier on yourself if you just look at things in a better way. If you find the glass is half full kind of perspective. And so this is a really big read for you guys. I'm not going to lie. I kind of feel like, oh, but Wheel of Fortune in reverse definitely implies that there is a level of distrust that you have, that you're not good at surrendering, you're not good at giving up, and there's like an innate pessimism to people that get this card in reverse, or if you're moving through it and you draw this in a reading reverse, that means that you're trying too hard to manipulate things that are way out of your control. And so you're going to find that there's this buffering aspect of, like, you want the wheel to land on something specifically, and so maybe you manipulate it. Maybe you move something before the other person notices, or yeah, there's like some level of deception, which is very off-putting to a card that kind of like represents a lot of like fun and reignition of karma. And so this could also speak to bad karma. If you guys are operating on things of a bad karmic nature, if you're seeking revenge, that's a stereotype of Scorpios, or if you're willing to do harm to people, that stuff comes back to you. And that could be what the Wheel of Fortune is. It's not in your favor because it doesn't think that you deserve good things. And so maybe this speaks a lot to the fact that Scorpios find themselves in situations that are very, very oppressive, or that they're constantly in this fear-based mindset. And I think the question arises, are you guys putting yourselves in that? Are you just willing not to do the moral thing, the ethical thing, and move through things slowly and fight the good fight, and just try to stay optimistic? Because with the water signs, there is just so much that you guys feel like is threatening your existence constantly, that it in turn changes your perspective and your kind of personality. And I think that we see a lot more of the seriousness, a lot more of the pessimism and the fear when we look at the water signs. I mean, in astrology, they do represent destruction and things of a scarier nature. And so, not to say that every Scorpio out there seeks to destroy or uproot people, but there's a natural tendency to put themselves first and in a position to where you're not so concerned about the effect of other people. And that becomes dangerous. And when you're fixed, you get so hung up on concepts too. And that, we see with Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus that it's very hard for them to kind of let go of control to some nature and to let go of concepts. Like, they'll kind of ride those for a lot longer than the other signs do. And with Scorpio, we do have that too, but in the emotion sector. And that's why it becomes so dangerous, is because when you're feeling one aspect of emotion for a pronounced period of time, I think that becomes very volatile. I mean, emotion is something that is so it can be debilitating, it can be destabilizing, it can really make you feel weak and without hope. And so when you're in a constant state of that, yeah, it makes you really, really destructive and really, unstable. And it makes you a lot more selfish, because you're like, I need to get away from that. And maybe you realize how much damage that you guys do to yourselves and those around you. I mean, not to say that you guys are doing it intentionally, but you should be very aware of the effect you have on other people. I think that's some good advice. So Wheel of Fortune is just like, you don't trust games or any kind of luck maybe you don't feel like luck is even a real concept. You have a lot of doubts about, you know, is life even worth living? Is there something to be gained from all of this? Or are we just kind of crawling over each other trying to get to the top the whole time? There's a lot of like, yeah, there's a lot of like kind of um, just bad perception. There's like this almost feels like somebody that's just very, very sarcastic, but to that nature to where you're like, were, were they joking? Because they didn't indicate that they were joking at all, but if it came from someone else's mouth, that would have maybe appeared like a joke. So you're just like, I think that they're serious. And so that's like, it kind of gives you like that double take that people do with you guys. And they're just like, oh, okay. Um, so, anyways, let's see here, Scorpio. What else do we got? Sorry for being such a read. That Libra one was pretty hard too. I didn't go easy on them either. Oh, we got two. Oh, interesting. And we got the card that we got for Libra, but it is reversed. So, Three of Swords in reverse. So this is the pain card. This is understanding maybe more so why we have that Wheel of Fortune in reverse, because you guys feel like there's so much weighing you down constantly, or like from your past, like you've had some traumas, you've had some real like hurt, and you've just never gotten over it. You've never recovered from it. And so maybe you're kind of taking opportunities to subvert it, to like, distract yourself from it. And so maybe that in turn imposes inflicting pain on other people, because you're trying to distract yourself from what's happened in your own life. Maybe you've been, kind of dealt the short stick a lot, and you just feel like, I don't know why, but I just like don't get good things. Good things just don't happen to me. And so you have that mindset and you have that way, like, I only get good things when I work for them, when I make it happen. I don't depend on anybody else. And I feel vulnerable when I do. So I'm just not going to do that. And so I think with the Three of Swords, it's an interesting card to get in reverse, because I think it's not a simple one to kind of dissect. The Three of Swords really can speak a lot to your past relationships, your past flings, even though it is air, and air is all about the future. And so there's an implication here that the sorrow and stuff continues to follow you, like, a rain cloud, like in a cartoon character that they can never move away from. It's kind of like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, and he's just like, okay, I guess we'll do that. I wouldn't say that I would see Scorpios just like that far, down that path, because you guys still come kind of in the middle of the zodiac, so you still have a lot of energy in you. You still have a lot of things that you want to accomplish before you get really old, and so you're not like to the Pisces side of that. I feel maybe Eeyore is more of a representation of like Pisces, and just not really giving a shit because they're so far beyond us. It feels kind of like they're hibernating or going to sleep on their last stretch. But you guys still have the stamina, and for sure we can see that with the Emperor card. So these two came together. The Emperor is really the tenacious, commanding person, and this is what you guys seek to do. You guys seek positions of power and authority, and not to say that you are bad at it. I just think, taking into account these other things going into factor, this kind of makes you guys not the most sound judges, the best people to be making decisions with, because there's a lot of mistrust and dis-ease already in you internally. It's going to translate into your work and how you communicate to other people. Not to say that you can't be effective and successful, because we see the Emperor is faced upright, and that is usually an indication of success. The Emperor is a very stern, like kind of no nonsense person that is just giving out orders, like the general or commander like that's getting ready for battle, and he's kind of rallying the troops, and he's kind of talking them up and things, and just trying to make it feel like they're invincible. And the emperor is really just holding on to tradition for tradition's sake, and for kind of like that. It's always going to be passed down. This is the way we do things, kind of a thing. And so there's good and bad to this card. Yes, it is a penchant for success, but there's a lot indicating that it's too intense, it's too dominant, it is too commanding, and maybe even oppressive. And so we get that with the Aries energy that's associated with this card. And you guys also share a ruling planet of Mars with Aries. And so there are some similarities in the signs that you guys have. They're both very, very sexual signs, very masculine signs in nature. Even though water speaks more to the feminine, they're almost like the female Scorpios approach things in a masculine way. Like they put their bodies and things on display in a very bold way. And so maybe that's where that masculinity comes from. It's not necessarily that every Scorpio you meet is a male. It's just that even in the females, they have this kind of way of affecting their environment, of kind of alluring people or drawing them into a way that is very almost stereotypical. I feel like you guys definitely get probably the most stereotypes or the most fear, in the zodiac. And I think that says a lot to how other people perceive you, but how you affect other people, because I'm sure a lot of that is based in real interactions and relationships. And so you have to be wary that there's two sides to everything. It's just not as simple as being straightforward all the time. And so that's the emperor is very, he doesn't necessarily think of the big picture, what's best for everybody. He's just very, very action oriented, and is going to take kind of the most expected approach, but an approach of strength. So he'll always seek to do things in a powerful way, in a way that gets noticed, and in a way that kind of upholds tradition, that keeps the foundations of the past. Scorpio isn't so much as like a trailblazer, as opposed to somebody that's just seeking a better position for themselves. And in that instance, they find themselves maybe at the top of a corporation or something like that. But they're really only doing it for themselves, their own security. They don't necessarily have that fire conviction to lead people to change other people's minds. That's what I find with Scorpios, is with water signs, there's just this need for self-preservation, because you guys feel so attacked and so vulnerable to the outside world, that you seek these positions that allow you to make the decisions, that allow you to be sought after from other people, as opposed to you having to ask other people for help, because maybe you grow up feeling like you depend on people for so much that you would rather be in a position of power and get the other side of that. And so kudos to you guys for making it happen, because like I said, I'm very impressed with the transformative qualities of your sign, and how you can somehow blend into your environment over time and just really, really do things that like other people would be skeptical that you could even do, and there's this need to kind of prove people wrong that I find with Scorpios, is that it's like, the only thing you have to say for a Scorpio to do something is like, oh, I don't think you could do that. And then all of a sudden the next day they're doing it, that's all it takes sometimes. And so there's like a really easy way to do some reverse psychology on you guys. In that sense, it's almost like a kid, and maybe that's what you guys share with the Aries nature, the Mars that rules, you guys share that planet, is that you tell a kid not to do something, what's it going to do, and so it's like if you doubt a Scorpio, they're going to prove you wrong, because they feel good when they prove people wrong, and when they kind of subvert the, the opinion or the whatever. And so there's a lot of good and bad. There's a lot of mixed stuff with your sign. But I feel like through the hurt, we got these cards together. You guys somehow move into a position of strength. And so you're able to access your pain, maybe not in a healthy way, but you distract yourself by growing stronger, growing more in your power. And so you're not necessarily dealing with the stuff that is consistently doing you harm, but you're just finding a better position of success to like deter you from having to look further into it. Maybe you are just finding ways to move away from those people that have hurt you, or those situations that really, really damaged you. Um, and that's where we see the need for power. And so, like I said, you guys aren't necessarily doing this to inspire other people. Maybe you do find some along the way, and that you find that you are a natural leader, and that you do inspire other people, and that gives you some sort of confidence. And that's really cool to take that pain and to transmute it into something helpful. Um, and with the fixed signs, surely, I think a lot of people respect the fixed signs because they know so much of themselves and kind of what they're capable of. They may be a lot slower to move, but they, do so in such a confident manner. And I just think that maybe the reason why that there's such this darker, macabre feel to your sign is because of this card. It may not seem like a lot, but when you feel like your heart is so damaged, you get to a point to where maybe you want to start inflicting it on other people. And you can't ever control the situation that you're brought into. You can't control in what environment you're born into. If you were born into a low income family and you were always having to work really hard while watching other people barely lift a finger, you can't hold that against them. They didn't choose that life. We don't choose the way we're brought into this world, but we can choose how we approach it, how we think about others, how we treat others. And I think if you were a little easier on other people, you would find that people really do seek to help each other, and that not everything is a power move, not everything is, some kind of way to preserve themselves. Not everybody is seeking selfish motives and trying to climb over other people. And I think there's just a lot of notions with you guys that you don't have a lot of belief in humanity at large. That you're only just spending some time here and you're just trying to get into a level of success, and in that lifetime you don't really feel like there's a lot more to gain. To me, that makes me really sad. That's kind of what I feel from this reading and knowing you guys, is that you feel like you're cursed to some degree. Like you feel like there's just so much pain innately inside of you that there's no way that you could ever try to take those swords out of your heart to try to heal the wounds. I think that there's like no need to even try here, and that's sad to see. I hope when you get to the top that maybe you find other inspirational people that have a lot of things that have happened in their past and have found some way of working towards them. I mean, surely money being an object could help you in that aspect. Maybe it allows you to go to the doctor that you've never been to that can surgically remove something that's always like brought down your confidence, or maybe you can like take some form of therapy that's very groundbreaking, but it's very expensive, but it allows you to access that pain and hurt that is so traumatic to you. I think we understand a lot more of Scorpios with this reading. I do, for sure. These weren't expected cards. I'm very pleased and surprised that we had this card because it shows a lot. Maybe you almost feel like life is a game and there's no prize that is like really ever going to satisfy you. So you're like, why do I even try playing? And so what you do is just you find a way to get into a role of commanding, or being maybe the host, or being the one that has the say so, as opposed to playing the game because you don't feel comfortable as a participant. Yeah, I'd encourage you guys to kind of try to reshape your perspective a little bit. Try to see through somebody else's shoes. Maybe somebody that's a little more optimistic, that's a little more creative, and see how they find their confidence in a different way than your own, and find a way to not always take that dark cloud with you. If you keep surrounding yourself with people and things of that nature, you're naturally going to just keep inhibiting yourself, and it's going to keep transposing on your reality. And so, if you continually, seek horror films, if you continually, don't talk to family members, that stuff is just gonna like grow over time into just more discontent and more fear, and it's just gonna keep permeating your space. So I know it sounds really stupid and easy, but don't do so much of that. Is like actually like really turn your attention to those things that need it, and um, just try a different approach. I mean, what's the harm? If you've always done it the same way. Anywho, I hope this wasn't too tough to listen to. I was saying the same about Libras. I feel like the readings today were very complex in nature, but they were pretty spot on. And I just feel like I've had so many people of each sign over the years, and that I can see the patterns and I can see what you guys represent and the symbology, and that I feel like I have a good enough understanding to speak to the length that I do. I'm always open to opinions and comments, so please let me know if there's anything you think I should mention in a future video. And if you guys want a personalized reading, please contact me at tarotwithtyler.com. I have a new website, and you can set up a tarot reading or an astrology reading even, where we look at the current forecast of the planets and how it's affecting you personally based on your natal chart. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more personal, and it's very insightful, and so it can really help you when you feel out of control. I certainly need it every few months from my astrologer, and I certainly enjoy doing it up for other people. So tarotwithtyler.com, definitely check into that, and I will see you in the other videos, okay? So you guys take care, and just be a little easier. you know, don't take everything to heart. I know it's hard to do.